The snow had been falling since 4 in the afternoon. By 7, it lay across Manhattan in soft, unbroken sheets covering the iron railings, the parked cars, the concrete shoulders of the city that never fully surrendered to quiet. But tonight it had. The noise was muffled. The lights blurred through the glass into warm smears of amber and gold. And inside Times Le Bernardin, Times tucked between 2 blocks of Midtown, that the city had decided to make elegant, the clink of crystal, and the low murmur of other people's lives, went on as usual. Daniel Brooks sat at a corner table and checked his watch. 7. Dirt. P.M. He had arrived 7 minutes early, which was unlike him. He told himself it was because he'd left the office while the roads were still manageable, not because some part of him was nervous. He wasn't nervous. He was 35 years old. He ran a real estate development firm that managed 11 properties across 4 boroughs. And he had sat across the table from men twice his age who had tried to buy him out. He didn't do nervous. He did, however, do punctual. The maitre d' had seated him near the window he'd requested it, knowing the view of the snow-covered street would give him something to look at when the conversation lagged, because the conversation would lag. It always did. That was the nature of these evenings. 2 people performing ease for each other across a white tablecloth, each privately wondering how quickly they could leave without appearing rude. He'd done this 4 times now, 4 evenings in 3 years, each one arranged by his mother, with the quiet desperation of someone who believed that what her son needed was not more time, but simply the right person placed in front of him, each one ending with a handshake, a polite exchange of numbers that neither of them used, and Daniel driving home through the Holland Tunnel with the particular heaviness of a man who has confirmed something he already knew. He wasn't built for this anymore. He ordered sparkling water and studied the menu he wouldn't really read. On the chair across from him, his coat hung like a person. In the back of his mind, a clock ran silently. 20 minutes. If she hadn't arrived in 20, and there was no reasonable spark by 30, he would stay for dinner out of courtesy and leave by 8:30 at the latest. He had a morning call with contractors in Philadelphia. He had his phone lit up. A text from his daughter's babysitter, Patrice. Asterisk. Lily says to tell you good night. She left her book on your pillow. She said you would know which one. Asterisk. He looked at the message for a moment. Then he set the phone face down on the table. Lily was 6. She had brown hair she'd inherited from her mother, and a habit of falling asleep with a different book every night, splayed open across the blanket like a butterfly she'd caught and let go. Her mother had left when Lily was 2, not left times them asterisk. Exactly. More that she had left times herself asterisk. The version of herself that lived in that apartment and was married to that man, and taken the rest of her along for the journey. No custody dispute. No real malice. Just the particular quiet devastation of realizing that 2 people had stopped growing in the same direction. Daniel had not dated seriously since. There had been a woman 2 years ago, a lawyer named Christine. Smart and funny and kind, but she had wanted someone who showed up fully, and he had not been able to promise that. He was good at showing up in the ways that could be scheduled. He was not so good at the rest. His mother, Evelyn, was 71 and had been in declining health for 18 months. A heart condition that had stabilized but not resolved. She lived on the Upper West Side with her sister and a homemaid. And she called Daniel every Sunday morning and asked 2 questions. How is Lily? And are you alone? He always answered the first question at length. He gave the second the minimum syllables required. This dinner was for her. That was the truth of it. She had found someone she wanted him to meet, the daughter of a woman from her volunteer group, and she had asked so quietly, without any pressure. Just times, please, Daniel. Just once more asterisk, that he had said yes before he finished thinking about it. 20 minutes. Then he would reassess. He looked out at the snow. A yellow cab moved slowly through the intersection, its lights throwing long shadows across the white pavement. A man in a dark coat stood at the corner holding an umbrella that had partially inverted in the wind. The city was trying to go on as usual, and the snow was gently refusing to cooperate. Daniel watched it all through the glass and felt, as he often did in still moments, The particular loneliness of a man who has everything organized and nothing warm. The door opened. She came through the entrance without performance. That was the first thing he noticed, not her appearance, but the absence of an entrance. Most people entering a room like this did something small with themselves upon arrival. Adjusted a shoulder, scanned the tables for reaction, positioned themselves to be seen arriving. This woman simply came through the door, shook the snow from the shoulders of her coat, and looked around the room with the focused patience of someone who was looking for a specific table, not a general impression. She was wearing a deep blue dress, not a statement, just a color that worked. Her hair was pulled back simply. No elaborate accessories. A small pair of silver earrings. She had snow on the toe of one boot that she didn't seem to notice. She spotted him and walked over. "Daniel?" She held out her hand. Her handshake was straightforward. "Emma Collins." "Sorry. I'm a little late. The cab couldn't turn onto 51st. So I walked the last 2 blocks. She glanced down. "I'm also now wearing most of the snow from 52nd Street, so I hope this place has good napkins." He almost smiled. "Emma, please, sit." She sat across from him and looked at the menu. Not at him, not around the room, the menu. As if she had arrived somewhere real and intended to actually eat. "Your mother speaks very highly of you," he said. "She's being generous. Most of what she knows about me is from Sunday phone calls, and I always wait until the week improves before I call." She looked up. Her eyes were gray-green. Direct. "She thinks very highly of yours, though. She talks about Evelyn often. They've been volunteering together for 3 years at the Riverside Literacy Center." She closed the menu. "I know what I'm having. The halibut." She looked at him. "I'll be honest with you, I don't really know what we're supposed to talk about at these things. The format is strange. We're supposed to perform getting to know each other while both being aware that it's a performance." He looked at her. "So," she continued, folding her hands on the table with something that was almost businesslike, "I'd rather just talk." "Is that all right?" "That's fine," he said. And meant it. More than he expected. "Good. What do you actually want?" "Not from tonight. Just in general." It was an odd question. He paused. "What do you mean?" Most people, when you ask them what they want, say things like success or stability or balance, which all basically mean the same thing, less difficulty. But that's not really wanting something. That's just avoiding things. She picked up her water glass. "So what do you actually want?" No one had asked him that in a long time. He realized, in the pause that followed, that he wasn't sure he had an answer that didn't sound like the answers she had just dismissed. "I want my daughter to grow up knowing I was actually there," he said finally. "Not just present. There." Emma was quiet for a moment. Something in her expression settled. The way a room settles when a window closes and the noise outside fades. "That's a good one," she said. The waiter came. They ordered. The snow went on falling outside. The halibut arrived, and so did the conversation's weight. He told her, eventually, about Brooks' development. The projects, the zoning battles, the satisfaction of watching a building go from blueprint to real. He described it the way people describe work they've been doing so long it's become part of their identity, accurate but slightly opaque, like a man describing his own face. She listened, not the performance of listening, where someone nods at intervals and waits for their turn. She actually listened. "You're good at building things," she said when he finished. "That's what I do. I meant that as more than a professional observation." She tilted her head. "You described that whole project, the Harlem building, the community concerns about displacement, and you fixed it. You redesigned the ground floor, brought in local businesses, kept 2 of the original tenants. You could have just pushed through. You didn't. It was the right business decision. Maybe, but you didn't tell it that way. You told it like it mattered to you." He didn't answer that. She told him about teaching. 4th grade at PS 165 on the west side, 22 children. A classroom with one broken radiator that the building manager had been promising to fix since October. She said it the way she said everything, plainly, without asking for sympathy. "What made you choose teaching?" he asked. She considered this seriously. "There's a boy in my class, Marcus. He comes in every morning having already been awake for 3 hours, because his little sister wakes up early, and someone has to watch her. His mother works nights. He sits down, opens his notebook, and starts working. He doesn't complain. He doesn't make the situation small." She paused. "I wanted to be in the room with kids like that. I wanted to be the person who showed up for them." Daniel set down his fork. "He's 8 years old," she continued, "and he already understands something that takes most people decades to figure out, which is that showing up is the whole thing. Not brilliance, not talent, just staying." Something tightened in Daniel's chest. He was good at identifying the source of things, the cause behind the effect, the structural reason a deal worked or didn't. He was less good at this, the sudden recognition that someone else had articulated something he'd been living around without naming. "I grew up with money," he said, unexpectedly. She didn't react. "Not obscene money, but comfortable. And the lesson I learned from that, the wrong lesson, I think, was that problems were mostly about resources. If something was broken, you hired someone to fix it. If someone was struggling, you wrote a check." He looked at the table. "My ex-wife used to say I treated everything like a transaction, even the things that weren't. Was she right?" He thought about it honestly. Partially. Partially is not the same as wrong. "No." He looked up. "No, it isn't." Outside, the snow had thickened. It fell through the light of the street lamps in wide curtains, and the people passing on the sidewalk moved carefully, as if the city had asked them to slow down. He was reaching for the check. 20 minutes had become nearly 2 hours, and he had not once thought about the time when Emma spoke to the waiter. "Could I get the remaining portions of the sea base and the bread service boxed up?" "To go?" Daniel glanced at her. She smiled slightly at the waiter. "It's for a friend." He assumed she meant herself. He thought nothing of it. He paid the check over her mild protest. They collected their coats, and he held the door as she stepped out into the cold. She thanked the doorman by name. She'd apparently learned it coming in, and walked toward the street. The snow was still falling. The box from the restaurant was in her hand. He flagged a cab. One stopped. "I'll be right there," she said. She turned and walked back along the sidewalk a few yards. Against the wall of the building, half tucked into the alcove next to the service entrance, was a man sleeping under what appeared to be 2 jackets. A paper coffee cup sat upright beside him, with a few bills folded inside. Emma crouched beside him.